He's waving.
No,
He's waving.
I was waving. All right, we're good. Are you, Vince, are you okay?
I'm ready when you are.
Can you do it? Yeah. Mallory gets 7. All right, it's just after 6:30 and we are all here. Our board member, Jessica Ramirez, is on virtually, so she's on and ready to call the meeting to order.
And we're live streaming. Yep.
And that we're live streaming. Yep, thank you. Got to get used to that. Remind everybody that the meetings are live streamed. All right. So I will ask for a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's board meeting of the Colts Neck Township Board of Education, April 24th, 2024. Mr. Camera.
Present.
Mrs. Denoya.
Here.
Mrs. Dillon.
Here.
Mrs. Dimes.
Here.
Mr. Arico.
Present.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Here.
She is attending remotely. Mr. Rignetta.
Here.
Mrs. Volpe.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Can I have a quorum?
Thank you. I just advise, as it says, that proper legal notice was given of this meeting, and in that case, we can all stand for a flag salute, please. To your left, right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes has been taken off the agenda, so we will roll right into what's becoming our regular presentation of our student liaisons. As I've said at the previous meetings, we really are excited to have you guys with us. Happy that so many of you have been able to attend so regularly, and this is your chance to speak in addition to speaking during the public session if you'd like, but you're not expected to have anything prepared or whatever. So I'm going to just go left to right if it's okay, and we'll get started. Did you have anything you wanted to share tonight?
No, not really.
Perfect start. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I have talked about this to Mr. Rignetta, and I have something for the, I'm not sure if you would say it was for policy or for extracurricular sports, arts, and activities, but I do have something for you. So this was one of my parents' ideas, and they told me that what if we maybe like sometimes during, I don't know, maybe like once a month for a certain like group of kids, maybe they can go over to maybe like a retirement home and they can hang out with the old folks and
That's so sweet.
play with them, like play board games, card games, draw, all of that, and it would just be a really fun idea for the folks down at that.
I think that's a great idea. From my recollection, I think that may have been spoken about already, probably because of you, and unless anybody else has anything to say on it, I'll tell you that we will definitely take that under advisement and see if we can set it up. Great suggestion, thank you.
Thank you.
I heard we got my original idea of providing more lunch foods, such as regular bagels to the school approved, and I think that it's going to be a really great opportunity for picky or restricted eaters to find a much better meal at lunch. Thank you.
Always open to suggestions when it comes to eating, and I'm glad we were able to do it. The administration got right on it and got it done.
I personally have been hearing a lot of positive feedback on the Heritage Day that just occurred at Cedar Drive Middle School. And I think it was a great idea, and it was a student-organized event. There were a few students, specifically Sean Kayla, I know, was involved in creating it and organizing the event. I think more events similar to this would have a great impact on our school system and would allow students to get more involved. Thank you.
Very well said, and thank you. Anything tonight?
Nope.
Nice. We opened and closed, nice and easy. Thank you, all of you. The communications which the board received, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. are all on the agenda. And I've got a little sore throat, so for my president's report, I'm going to really keep it short. After we get through the agenda, I just want to mention that we will be having what I think will be an interesting, nice, open discussion that sometimes is not done in open sessions, where we'll be talking about, the board put out requests for proposals for professionals who work for the board, so we're going to have some discussion here tonight. Some of them might lead to decisions by the board members, others might lead to the board saying that they think they need an evaluative committee to look at those proposals. Some of those committees may decide they can determine enough from the proposals that were submitted, and some of them may want to have interviews. So I think it's an interesting process, and hopefully you guys will find it that way too, anybody who can stay for that. And the other thing we'll be talking about is a very important decision that has to be made soon about where to go with our health insurance coverage. So I think it'll be an interesting meeting. I should just mention, I don't know if I have it right in front of me, but that it's important. Is it May 7th, or what's the date? May 7th is our next regular meeting, and it'll be the public hearing and adoption of our budget. The budget's essentially the biggest thing we do every year. So that one is at the primary school at still 6:30, or what time are we doing that?
I think it's at 6:30.
Yeah, of course, it'll be on the website, but just want to make sure everybody
I
knows.
think it might
it.
be 6, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right, that's all I have. We'll see if any of the committees,
John, thanks. No, I was just curious, are we live streaming the budget meeting on May 7th since it's in the primary school?
I don't know that we can. If we can, I would love to,
can't hear
but
you.
I'm going to rely on administration and IT to see if they can set that up.
Just one other note, May 7th is a Tuesday.
Good point. No, it's still the meeting date. She wanted to make sure everybody wasn't just looking for the first Wednesday in the month. Thank you, both. So for committee reports, buildings and grounds, safety and security, Kevin?
I had a wonderful tour last night. Thank you, Doctor, Superintendent, for taking your day off and taking my fellow board member, Ms. Volpe, and Vinnie. Nick Moretta guided us through the schools and updated us on a energy savings infrastructure project that is currently going on with all 3 schools. They're updating the HVAC systems, windows, sealing the windows, the doors, working the boiler rooms. It's a really extensive project that's going to benefit our schools. As Nick would say, we want to concentrate on fixing the bones in the schools. Critical systems, air conditioning for the kids. So it was wonderful to see the progress that's going on, and maybe my fellow board members can comment as well. If you have any.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely educational for me. I didn't realize how big this district is. I did notice, a couple of things that, I personally want to see repaired, but, Rome wasn't built in a day, and, I know we have to follow budgets, but one of the young men had mentioned about the bathrooms, and I did notice one, Dr. Garbe did go over with me, it definitely needs repairs, and we were talking about getting urinal dividers, because, that seems to be, something important to some of the younger gentlemen in our district. But I do want to say that they did fix the hole in the ceiling that one of our, I forget which one, if it was Sean.
Sean.
Yeah, he had brought it to our attention, and it was rectified immediately right after that meeting that he spoke about it. So I do appreciate Mr. Moretta getting on that and doing that, and taking his time, as well as you, to take us around the 3 buildings. It was a 3-hour tour, and I was exhausted when it was done, but thank you very much.
And that's what I was going to ask. Was it Sean and Tyler?
Tyler.
Who both came, and they stuck it out for the whole 3 hours?
We stuck it, Sean stuck it out.
Hopefully you were impressed, because like Angelique said, we may not be big geographically, but there's a lot of facilities here, and it's more than just the buildings. It's all the infrastructure, so.
Do you have any comments, Sean, from the tour perspective from the student?
Yeah, it was cool to see everything of the actual buildings, and that the water management system at below the Conover Road. That was Craft.
Yep,
Yeah,
primary.
yeah, that was nice to see, and just like how it all works. And then we also saw the storage system, how they tag everything for 18 months, and if it doesn't get used, they remove it. That was really cool to see.
Very unique. up until last year when I got on the board, I assumed it was a typical outside septic system to handle the wastewater. To see that system surprised me, and I found it very interesting. So glad you participate.
And nothing from the senior citizens.
Thank you. Communications Committee, that's Vinnie. And Curriculum Committee, Jess.
Hi, so nothing that has happened yet, but tomorrow we do have a curriculum committee meeting at 1 o'clock. And so the agenda was sent out to the full board. I encourage the full board, if any members have anything that they, anything aside from what's already on the agenda that they want to address, please send me an email or Dr. Garbe or Dr. Reynolds. Although, there's things that are on there, I know there's some new board members, and so I want to make sure if there's anything that you're unclear about or unsure of, even if it's after tomorrow's meeting. We are voting on the new curriculum next month in May, and so there's a lot of that. So if any of the board members, even seasoned board members, if you have any questions about any of that, please let me know. Otherwise, that's it.
I'd certainly let her know if I have any questions. I'd be very hesitant to add anything to the agenda you guys have already set up. It's pretty intense. And hey, and before I forget, back to buildings and grounds, Kevin, it never clicked in my mind that, I don't know who did that, but that your tour was scheduled for Tuesday when school was closed. And so, again, he said it, but I want to add my thanks. That was over and above. I'm glad you and Nick and if there was any other staff, like that was very special. And did they force you to do it on your day off?
No, availability. It was about availability of when everyone was able to do it.
Great. Finance, negotiations, anything to report?
No, just looking forward to looking at the companies who sent in the RFPs and sorting through them and figuring out who's going to be the best fit.
As I said at the beginning, it's going to be an interesting meeting tonight, a little different to have those discussions, but yeah, it's all about finances.
That's what
And back to Jess, Policy Committee, anything?
Yeah, so what you'll notice is on the agenda tonight, there are two policies on their respective regulations that we'll be voting on. These are modifications that came down from Strauss Esme. They were pretty extensive changes that were made or modifications that were made. But at the same time, reading through them, everything seems to make sense and is pretty straightforward. I did have a couple questions, but they were addressed by administration, and so that's really it for policy. We are still waiting on administration to get us the comparison data, a more formal comparison data. Of course, it's ongoing right now, but so that we can proceed to move forward with that in one direction or another. That's it. There's no meeting scheduled. I anticipate once we have that data, then we will likely be scheduling a committee meeting at that point to review that data but formally. That's all.
Thank you. And by comparison data, is that about Strauss Esme versus the New Jersey School Boards Association? Okay,
Correct.
good. I just didn't know if everybody understood, so thank you. Advocacy and Government Relations Committee, Ange?
Not really much to report. I still have not gotten a meeting together for us yet. I don't see anything pressing to meet, to pull everybody in for anything at this time. But the Serena Rice appointment that was scheduled for the 15th was tabled, so there was no vote on that. I think they're revisiting it mid-May, so once again, we are going to continue with advocating and writing a letter against that appointment from this board as a whole. And the Freedom to Read Act also has been on the back burner, so I'm just patiently waiting to see what the outcome of those two things will be.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Last and certainly not least, anything from the ad hoc arts and sports and extracurricular?
Yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to meeting with Dr. Garbe and the stakeholders and getting their input. And I have some ideas. I can't wait to bring it forward. And hopefully we'll bring in new ideas and new assemblies and new positions to do next year.
Great. Just out of curiosity, for the meeting tomorrow, did it seem like it made sense, and were you able to include the liaisons or no?
Yeah, Lisa.
To participate, yeah? Great.
Not the student ones we had talked
Not
about.
the
The email
student.
exchange was just them. The students aren't involved
Oh,
until
yeah.
tomorrow, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if that even made sense for that.
The availability was 3:30 would have been
Oh,
late for
okay.
them, yeah, for a late bus. Yeah, we didn't do that.
So not this one.
Not this one.
All right. And now our board member liaisons. Brenna, anything from the, we'll call it the PAC, the Parent Advisory Committee?
Yes, Dr. Garabay, Dr. Beck, Mrs. Denoy and I met this morning for a couple hours. We reviewed all the commentary from the summarized recommendations that we had sent out to the Parent Advisory Committee. So everyone, we got a lot of responses back, a lot of positive, a lot of extra kind of, new tidbits to add in there. And just as a reminder, everything is in the Google Drive for the board, so we can all review all the itemized recommendations, but again, the summary that we will be presenting is more of like a summation of the main themes that we saw throughout all of those meetings. So we're looking to present that on May 29th, is that what we said? May 29th, right? Yep. So again, we're gonna, send out notification for the whole pack, and hopefully they'll be there for that. And if anyone has commentary from the Parent Advisory Committee that night, they'll be welcome to speak on it. But yeah, we're smooth sailing right now and on track to present that night.
All right, thank you. Amy, PTO?
We have the final numbers from the gala, so we raised $56,000 from the gala this year. Very exciting, appreciate everyone's support on that. And then just a lot of end-of-year activities, so Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up in, nice full swing. End-of-year activities, 8th grade dance, so all of that end-of-year will be here before you know it.
Thank you very much. Nothing from my end on the Township Committee. Kevin, anything on the senior citizens?
No, I do.
Okay. And back to Angelique, I know they sort of go hand in hand, but anything from State and County School Board Association?
Yeah, I got a couple of things, just to reiterate from the last meeting. The school boards is accepting nominations for the 2024-25 Board Member of the Year Award. The deadline is 4:30 on July 1st, if anybody wants to, recommend somebody for that. This award recognizes local school board members who exemplify commitment not only to children's education, their communities, but also public education around the entire state. We have the Women's Leadership Conference was on April 19th. 200 ladies turned out for that. Did you go to that? Okay.
Yeah,
So
myself,
Dr.
Mrs.
Garabay
Denoy, yes.
went, and Mrs. Denoy had attended that. It was a sold-out event at Mercer County College, and I heard it was a great educational experience for all that attended. I don't know if you want to put in anything, into that. You're welcome to add to it.
Yeah, it was a great day of learning. I attended a workshop for Link It, which is a platform that we use here in Colts Neck across all of our classes, and it was really neat to see it in action, albeit at a high level. But, and then we had the opportunity to do some networking, and just overall, it was a really great day.
Yeah, it was actually 10 years in the making. It was their first inaugural one, and that was really through the lens of with a workforce that's dominated with 75% women in education, really working with board members and having them recognizing the leadership potentials, not just in every educator, but especially in through education and women.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard it was great.
it was fantastic. The panel of experts and professionals they had were outstanding.
All right, just to continue, we have a reminder again for the New Jersey School Board Spring Conference, a prequel to the Workshop 2024. That's May 10th at the Conference Center at Mercer and Princeton Junction. This workshop will cover school safety, public relations, and student achievements. And then the last two things, once again, reminder for the big New Jersey School Workshop in Atlantic City, October 21st through 24th. All are encouraged to attend. I don't know if anybody's going to come from our board. And they are offering an early bird special until June 30th for a 25-person team, $2,100. I don't know if that's good or not. It seems like a lot, but
If I may,
I just wanted to mention if anybody does want to go, if you get 25 people, they're offering that till June 30th. And the last thing, John, I wanted to go over, we were going to attend that meeting 7th at the,
Coltsack Inn.
yeah, and now I just realized our big financial meeting is here that night, so thank God we didn't register yet.
Their loss will be here.
Yeah,
so,
we'll be there, so we're obviously not gonna be attending that. But that's all I have for school boards.
Thank you very much. All right, superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. I just want to, welcome everyone back and happy Passover to everyone who celebrated this past weekend. May 7th, as a reminder, it's already been said a couple times here, is our annual budget hearing. We are working to experiment between now and then to have the live streaming, because obviously all of our equipment here. So we'll make a final determination in the near future as to whether or not that can take place. I also wanted to congratulate the cast and crew and all the teachers who worked on Willy Wonka, the Crest Players on Friday. It was an outstanding performance, student performance in the arts and musical. It was just wonderful. It really was. It was a wonderful show that was just a lot of fun, and I really appreciated all the time and effort and talent that was shared with parents that night. I also Mr. Cameron was able to join me in the administration for our annual Purple Up Breakfast, which recognizes our military students and families at Cedar Drive throughout the district. The breakfast was a district-wide event at Cedar Drive. Mr. Cameron was there, and he was able to see it with us. So thank you for joining for that. It was a really, really nice morning and a great day for all of us. I also wanted to, was always already mentioned, that School Women in Leadership Conference was Friday. It was so well done, and I look forward to being a part of future conferences by them, which was great. And then the County Wellness, Monmouth County School Partnership Wellness Committee program was also last Monday on the 15th at night, so it was a busy day on the 15th. And it was about 200 people attended with different sessions with a focus on mental health and wellness. And so it was a really, really nice event as well. And that's all for my superintendent.
Beautiful, and thanks for the reminder about Purple Up Day. It was really, really a great thing that they put together. Did you say you've been doing it for a number of years?
Since we've been starting, it was part of when we brought in Naval Weapons Station Earl for the assimilation. Yeah, it was towards the end of the transition of that, so it's been a few years.
Superintendent, other staff put together a beautiful get-together. It was a nice breakfast, really nice slideshow showing pictures of the families. And I know from personal experience, my kids that have all gone through this school system have made some really good and unique friends through the military kids that are here. And as we express to them, we know it can be difficult moving the way they need to move sometimes, but they also get to touch a lot of different people's lives. So it was just a really, really nice thing to do to recognize them, and I appreciate you being there.
Yeah, and special thanks to our school counselors who really take the lead and
Right, the
coordinate all that. Yep.
Got it together. Just one information item, no action, it's on the agenda. And then we look for any general comments from any of our attending constituents. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion and get into business. So on action items 1 through 4, would anyone like to give a motion?
I heard you.
Second.
So we have a motion, a second, any discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, second. Did I already say second?
The only discussion is about who gets credit for first or second, but now that that's settled, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, and superintendent, action items 1 through 4. Mr. Camera?
Yes.
Mrs. Denoya?
Yes, on 1 through 3. 4 is recuse. Recuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Dillon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes?
Yes to 1 and 3 and recuse on number 4.
Mr. Arico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez?
Yes.
Superintendent, thank you. Mr. Rignetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And on the 2 items, under Buildings and Grounds, Safety and Security, would anyone like to offer a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, or comments? Hearing none, take a roll call whenever you're ready on buildings and ground safety and security, 2 issues.
Yes, numbers 1 and 2. Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Regnetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
The motion carried.
Thank you very much, and it looks like we have just one item under curriculum. Would anyone like to offer that?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take that vote.
Yes, on curriculum and instruction item number 1. Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Regnetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. So then we have items number 1 through 7 under finance. Could I get a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
I have one
We're
for
6, yeah, I only have 6.
It's
Up, 6 of them?
6 items.
Thank you very much. Trying to sneak something through for myself, number 7. No, appreciate it. Any discussion or comments? Okay, then I'll take a roll call, please.
Okay, finance items 1 through 6. Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Regnetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you again. And under policy, we have just one item. Would anyone like to offer it?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, if we can get a roll call, please.
Yes, on policy item number 1, Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Regnetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. I feel certain there are actually 7 items under personnel. So if anybody would like to offer a motion on those 7 items, that would be appreciated.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, I'm ready for a roll call.
Okay, personnel items 1 through 7. Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Regnetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Thank you, the motion passed.
Great.
Unanimous.
Before we get into the, just in case people don't stay for the whole thing, I think rather than getting into the listed discussion under new business, I'll just open it up to the board members if they have any typical new business that we would usually be looking for now, if anybody wants to add anything else, and then we'll get into our RFP and health insurance discussions after.
I don't know, I never know what to say during business, what's allowed, but, so forgive me if I'm in the wrong area, but, I know that Chromebook usage in this district is, a huge issue for some parents here. And like I said, I don't want to pick on how we teach our kids, I'm not a teacher and I don't know. But we briefly touched on this last night during our tour. And I do know that some parents feel that their kids are on the Chromebook way too much here. So whether it was brought upon during COVID, which I think most of us know, a lot of this was brought on during COVID, I know parents are unhappy. So, my position on this board is to help advocate for those parents. And I know that Brenna is leading the district with, your advisory committee, but I really hope that something comes out of it where these parents, are, see that we are doing something about it and we are going to make changes. So I just wanted to say that I hear them and, I am willing to make changes once her report comes out. And that's it. I just wanted to let them know that we do hear you, and we are going to make changes if we can.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I've heard from a lot of parents, it's at least from what I've heard, particularly about the younger kids. And I know you guys have all heard it too.
Sure.
And because we know that input was being given through the advisory committee, like Angelique, certainly we'll wait for those discussions once you guys summarize your recommendations.
And again, I mean, we've already had a meeting with the admin team who have been very receptive to the concerns, and everybody's, listening. I think some people have been seeing some positive changes already, more worksheets going home, more tangible evidence of non-Chromebook usage during the school day. So it's been a very enlightening investigation. Literally, I can call it an investigation because we are definitely digging into the minutes and, occasionally over an hour. But,
And if I may, I think one of the things that we're also coming across and parents are responding and providing, it's a district-owned Chromebook. So we have various reports that we're able to look at. There are two reports. One is visible to a parent and one is not. One is the administration report, which determines time of connectivity, okay? Which means that the students are on the Chromebook, it's connected to our district Wi-Fi. And when you look at that activity report, and if that person connects in homeroom or in the first period within the first minute, it looks like there's 4 or 5 hours of activity on a Chromebook all day long, which I can understand would give a perception that it feels like you're watching TV all day long. When you go into something that GoGuardian has that's called an activity timeline for each individual child, that's a different thing. That's them logging into actually their Google Classroom, actually logging into Savvis, actually logging into IXL. And for specific situations where we've been communicated with by a parent received a concern, we've presented that information to them, and we want to have conversations to teach them the differences about that. Because I can go on very strongly and say, no child is learning asynchronously in this district. For as someone who is in classrooms, no one is in that component is doing that. So we want to make our parents, and that's part of our feedback process too, we're not communicating that well. So what parents might be seeing, and in transitioning, we talked about transitioning from 2nd to 3rd grade, that's something we're going to hear, that there's a change, there are changes. And we don't want we certainly, and we talked about this today with Mrs. Denoya and Mrs. Dillon, and you said the same thing. There is post-COVID stress disorder. I really do believe that. In that, to some sense, that we're all still feeling, and we don't want our families to feel like that teachers are walking away, because there's a lot of creativity and a lot of strong instructional technology use that's going on, but primary instruction of our students is taking place from the certified trained professionals who are the teachers in our district, period. And I am willing to sign anything that will say and vouch for that. So I encourage parents who do have concerns and are looking at the administration or the administrative guidelines that are looking at the time of connectivity, but want to know what programs and how long they've been on, you will see that there's a significant difference between the hours and minutes that there appears to be logged in. So I just want to make sure that parents who feel and have a question and want specific details about that can do that prior to the report of changes that we make.
Yeah,
with
no,
different
that's good
things.
to know.
Yeah, and that's for
Detail.
specific questions, but also looking in terms of whatever recommendations are coming forward from that.
Okay, so during those meetings, unfortunately, I'm unable to attend them, but during those meetings, like, I wouldn't know how to do that, to see where my daughter is on there. So, are they explaining how to look that up to see how long, like, the difference between it logged on for the day?
The program part of it, the GoGuardian part of the programs isn't available to
Right.
parents. It's the log on activity through what's connected. So we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's something, like I said, anything, like I said.
Absolutely, it's
the one thing
communication piece.
We don't want to do, especially, I don't want to beat up the district.
Right.
You know, my child is growing up here, she's doing very well, but some people feel that, things have
Understood.
to change. So I
Understood.
don't want it to sound like it's a negative thing. We want to make it a positive thing, positive change for everybody, so everybody's happy and the kids are thriving, and, we don't want, you to feel that we're beating up or anything on
Understood.
the teachers. But, like I said, if this is such a big topic for these parents, I just, want something to, come about.
Sure, absolutely.
It's also, it's on our curriculum agenda
is a lot of conversations going on based upon feedback we've received. So it's definitely something in conversation, without a doubt.
All right, everybody good? All right, then as I said, stay for as much or as little as anybody wants. We're gonna get into discussions, as per the agenda, first about, the health insurance, and it's a big part of our budget, and we've been with a particular, carrier for a few years after having made a switch away, and we're gonna, and we just got a significant increase for next year, and our brokers found, a proposal that's significantly less. But there's pros and cons to it, clearly. So, as I said to everybody, happy to have you stay, but I want to get into just an open board discussion. We'll start with this.
Which will have public comment. It's like a workshop type of model without public comment.
Right, correct. Yes, you just, and thanks for the clarification. We're not looking for public comment here. The public portion is already done and closed, but we want to be transparent. And we're still live streaming, so it's going to be pretty transparent. So let me say first, because I worked for municipalities for over 30 years, I've gone through changes in health insurance, and it's no treat when you have a number of employees. We have about 180 employees enrolled in health insurance, and there's always challenges when you make a change. But nowadays, it's been a little better when you have to, because some rates have gone up so much, and the employees in most districts also now contribute to their health insurance. So it's more of a win-win, whereas in the old days, if you did better, pretty much only the administration did better, or the board in this case, but the employees themselves did not. We have about 180 employees. It's not, by industry standards, a huge group to have your own insurance. A lot of them are in, like us, some kind of group plan. And in general, group plans can provide better protection against increases. But, of course, that's not guaranteed. We're in a group plan now. We're looking at a significant increase, I think about 12%, which equates to about $500,000. And let me say again, back to my original point, if this was $100,000, not that that doesn't mean anything to me personally, but in the scheme of our budget, I wouldn't even want to discuss it, because but 500,000, $500,000 is a significant change, and I think the board should just have a quick discussion and then be polled, I guess, just if we're gonna stay where we are, or take a vote if it comes to that, if we're thinking of anything else or want to do anything else. But I'll start off the conversation by saying I appreciate Superintendent and BA setting up a meeting with our broker, Brown & Brown. It was at least Jason and Allison and me, just the three of us. And it was very informative. And even they ended the conversation saying, in fact, they were asked, do you think, so are you saying we should switch or that we should stay? And they said, we can't say that because there's too many variables. So I'll hit on some of those variables and then open up the discussion. We had been with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, again, one of the largest, if not the largest in the area, obviously in New Jersey. Great plan, great programs, but like any insurance company, they're a business. And bottom line is their money. The claims history have a lot to do with the proposals they give, whether it's to an individual or to a group, but not always. Sometimes they have other just business models that make them want to start bringing in new clients, and they hope that that makes their base better. Other times they go through periods where they decide to shave everybody who's even borderline and either take them off or give them a significant increase. We've had history with New Jersey Blue Cross and Blue Shield where they've given proposals for the next year, and then when we thought it was too high, we went back to them and we negotiated, our brokers, and then they would reduce it. That's the thing I like about them, in that they will negotiate the terms. The SHIF, I'll be calling it, the School Health Insurance Fund, it's a private fund, but made up of a bunch of school districts. they don't negotiate. They do their calculations, they give you an increase, and then that's it. You take it or leave it. And if you leave it, I should say that part, you can be considered to go back into it down the road if you decide to look at them again, but only after 3 years out. And even after 3 years, there's no guarantee. They could say, they could look at us or anybody else and say, nah, they're not a good risk, so you're not gonna come into plan. There's no obligation of them to take anybody who applies. Through the years with Horizon, like I said, we've had increases, some significant, some low. I think every one of them that I saw on the chart was able to be negotiated lower. With the shift, we've had increases. They put out that their typical increase for the group is around 3%. Our increases, other than our very first year, were significantly more, and we were, I think, more like 8% and maybe 12% in this last year, but I want to confirm that. So that you know why I did what I did. In my look.
8-something last year, yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like in '22, they only moved us up 0.85%, but in '23, they moved us up 0.864, a significant increase. And in '24, what we're talking about now, they want to move us up 11.66, like I said, about 12%, which on a $3.9 million rough budget brings us up to 4.4. Our broker shopped it out, and Horizon said, we'll basically leave you at the 3.9. My general feeling, without even getting into the numbers, is that that's significant enough that we should consider it, because even though you could say that there's more risk being on your own, sometimes there's more benefit being on your own, depending on your claims history. And obviously with a group, sometimes there's a bad aspect of being with that group because other people in that group have a bad claims history. So nothing's guaranteed. The brokers can't guarantee it. Nobody here can guarantee it. But what I can tell you is that if you decide to switch, then that $500,000 will go into surplus for us, because the full $4.4 million is in our budget as it stands now and will remain in there. So we're not talking about let's change and lower the budget. I would want that to go into surplus for a couple reasons, and that's because building up our surplus obviously is always something we try to do for future planning. But even more importantly, if you just look at the savings from a switch in health insurance, if you got, let me see if I can find my paper, if you got 3% raises even through the years, through the, there it is, through the shift, which is modest, but I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt of what they claim is their average. If we stuck with them at 4.4 and got a 3% increase next year, we'd be at $4,532,000. With Blue Cross and Blue Shield, because we dropped down to 3.9 and put aside the $500,000, if they hit us with a 10% increase next year, that would bring us up to $4,290,000, which is still over $200,000 less than what our new rate would be. So that'd be another $200,000 into surplus. Because we're starting so low, and that's why I said, wouldn't even be a discussion if it wasn't $500,000. By taking the lower rate, we protect ourselves against the increases, and in fact, even it would take a 16% increase to take us up to $4,524,000 compared to $4,532,000. So the only way we would lose our savings is if then we got and agreed to a 16% increase that would put us even. So I think that's all I'll say. I just wanted, because I'm not going to push hard and argue with anybody on this. I just think everybody has to really consider the fact that it's a significant savings, albeit a lot more work for administration and our broker if they do a switch. But the broker, like I said, I'll close out with that. They didn't present what I just added at the end, but they presented that it's a significant savings, that obviously Blue Cross Blue Shield is a reputable company. We're not talking about getting a savings from a fly-by-night. And that Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield has historically with this district and with others that I'm aware of, will negotiate. So even if they came to us next year with a 15% increase and our broker said, we're gonna leave, you gotta do better than that, it could be negotiated. The shift is should offer more stability going down the road. So at that, I don't think we have to go by committee. If anybody wants to comment.
My concern is the rate cap. What's going to prevent Horizon from increasing 12 to 18% in the second year?
Neither one of them has a rate cap.
Right, so, honestly, my inclination is to stay in the plan we have for stability, to stay in that group, and the concern if it does go in a marked rate increase in the next 3 or 4 years, we are excluded from getting back in that group for 3 years. I also like to hear from the teachers.
What's the coverage?
Well,
Is the coverage?
We're gonna just keep this to board now.
Yeah.
The
Thanks.
coverage, is the coverage gonna be the same?
Coverage will be equal or better. It has to be. Trust me, if it's not, we'll hear, not to put it on the teacher, we'll hear from all the staff.
And what's gonna come out of staff's paychecks, is it gonna be somewhat the same?
There's a lot of variation here that I'm not used to, but most people contribute to their health insurance in a way that the employees will see a reduction if we reduce the premium.
Okay.
For both, so it's a reduction for us and a reduction for them, because most of them pay a percentage of the premium.
Can we hear from the business administrator, his comment?
About
What's
what's
your opinion? What's your opinion as far as our district and healthcare for our district?
I mean, look, my role is to not, tell you what you should do, but to, in a decision or, to analyze this, I would look at the pros and cons pretty strongly here. I happen to listen to our broker and understand, both sides of it. I really do. Also, in addition to me just, being a steward of the district's finances for a year, I do like to, or strive to set the district up to be in a better position in the future. So with that said, it's my sort of belief that what the broker has presented is reasonable enough to assume that the benefits appear to me to outweigh the cons of switching. And that, again, is mostly due to the future implications. The future stability, the more memberships that the shift creates, the better that risk is spread across the group, and various other reasons that, are a little more complicated.
Appreciate your
But,
again,
Dividends, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's several other sort of factors
And those are
and
sup-
benefits. Not
those
that there
should be
aren't with, a competing carrier.
Right, but those dividends are supposed to increase over time. Isn't that correct?
They are, yes, and
So
it's,
the longer you're in, the more you benefit
That
from
is true.
those dividends, which would, in some ways, balance out that higher rate increase that we received. I'm asking the
yeah,
question because
it's hard to predict.
Right.
A lot of that is based on your individual district's experience, the surplus generated in the fund, and how they divvy that up, to your
Right,
point,
right.
based on your, history in the
And
fund, et
we've
cetera.
also seen that overall in the healthcare industry, based on what Brown and Brown presented, we've seen an increase in prescription drugs, correct? And there were certain things that have become
Yeah,
elevated.
I mean,
and
it's a
so-
macro problem, as he said too. It's not just, district specific. It is.
Correct.
Not just one
That's
category.
across the industry.
It is, correct. I mean, that's very much the reason for the significant increase for the 11% is due to some of the way that, the usage of our insurance has been running high. But that's statewide.
Right, that's any carrier.
That's statewide.
Anybody else
If
want to
that is
speak?
helpful, then.
I believe our claims as a district, when I was in this meeting with Gary Goldfarb, he was explaining that our risk factors and everything have been going down. Like, we were spiking in 2021 because they were explaining that in 2020, nobody was going to the doctor, nobody was going to the hospital, nobody was going to see their specialist, anybody. So in 2021, just along with every other district out there, has shot up like through the roof when it came to doctor's visits, prescriptions, this and that, everything across the board. But since 2022 and 2023, and obviously we can't calculate this year because this year isn't over yet, we've been going down significantly. And I think we've been going down a little better than some of the other districts as well when it comes to the claims that we've had along with the prescriptions. So we're in that downtrend right now. So leaving and going to somebody else, looking at that from that standpoint, like, we may come out, way better than maybe staying where we are now. Now, that's just the trend. It is going down. Could it go up again? Sure, it could go up again. But we are doing significantly better, as the years progress when it comes to the health claims.
Yeah, but like you said, nobody, the best broker in the world, nobody else knows our claims history next year.
Correct.
Or what either entity, Blue Cross Blue Shield or the SHIF, will offer us next year. So, anybody else?
Yeah, I'm looking over the cons and they seem significant, that I think, especially if it's almost like a sales tactic, it seems that Horizon could be offering us a lower rate to get us in, and then next year we could really be subject, like you said, there's no rate cap. And my concern is here, it looks like at the very bottom that it says they could really offer us whatever, we wouldn't be able to go back into the SHIF, and other carriers most likely would not quote us, so it's almost like we would be locked in with Horizon. That seems to be the opinion of the broker, which is concerning. So it almost seems like a loss leader year that they say, hey, we'll give you a great discount to get your business, but then next year, we don't know what that rate could be. I've been in sales a long time, and it seems like a certain tactic that they might be using, so that's just concerning to me.
Tough call, huh, John?
Wasn't there a window with which we had to state our withdrawal from the SHIF?
Yeah, that's why,
We expired that?
not as far as I'm aware.
Actually, just to clarify, I think it's just a standard 90-day
90 days.
window. But
Okay.
there's a lot of other, administrative things that would have to happen, and board resolution and so forth, yeah.
That's why I wanted to get this on tonight, to either move forward to switch or put it to bed and say we're not. Anybody else want to comment? All right, then that being said, to actually put it to bed, I'd like to just poll the board, because if we're gonna switch, a vote will come later to enter into a contract and do the other one. If we're gonna stay, there's no need to vote. Right.
Yeah.
So let's just go down and, well, I guess we should do it the way we always do it. Yeah, if you do a roll call, but it's not a vote on anything, just a poll on your position to, let's say, either stay or switch. Whenever you're good, Vince.
Oh, you want me to just roll it?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're so much better at that than anybody here.
So, John, Mr.
Yeah.
Cameron?
I'd like to switch.
Yeah. You said switch?
Switch.
Okay. Mrs. Denoya?
I'm not, like, making a decision like now, I don't feel comfortable.
This is just to see where we're going with it.
Yeah, but it's an important decision. It has to be done now.
I'm leaning towards not switching. I don't know. That's the best I can do. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms.
Sorry for the
Roscoe.
crowd.
Didn't you say that there was more benefit to, like you were leaning towards
Financially.
switching financially because of the 500,000? not putting you on the spot, I just,
Well,
because,
according to what Mr. Camera said,
Yeah.
he would be inclined to not look further in any kind of adjustment to the budget, because that's the other sort of reason, or one could say for remaining where we are, is because, administration went back and did some hard work to
Make it
present
happen.
additional savings
Yeah.
to the district. So it,
Excuse me,
It-
Mr. Kamara, I know it's not an appropriate time, but
Yeah, I'm sorry, I really can't take anything from the public, or else we have to open it up to all the public, but thank you.
so.
so sorry, I just, because, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of torn. I know, like you said, it's kind of a tough call, because there's
For
pros
sure.
and cons to each side.
And only because it's so much money. Like I said, we save
Right.
$500,000, but there's risk with both. We could stay where we are as the more conservative way to go, and the shift could give us another 12% next year. And Horizon could be 4, you know, you just don't know.
That shift, if they do shift us next year, that could put us almost where we would be this year anyway.
Yeah, the shift, either one of them can propose whatever they want to propose to us next year.
But you're saying shift,
Neither
there's no
one give us.
negotiation.
I'm sorry?
Shift, you said there's no negotiation.
There's no,
Negotiation.
no, once they say it, you either take it or leave it. And we did, if I didn't say that part, Brown and Brown, after our finance meeting, did go back to Horizon and say, because Horizon has the ability to, they're a business, like I said, with sales, ask them if they would consider a 2-year proposal or a cap, to say, okay, 1 year and no more than double digits next year, no more than some percent. But they would not. They want a 1 year. I'm sure they'll propose something next year, and then we'd have to negotiate it, and then we'd find out if it was the right call or not, but same with the shift, so.
Do you know, for any other districts, like or any other districts that might be with Horizon, what their typical increase was? So,
Verizon, from what I've seen, not school districts, Vince or Mary Jane may know better, but for me, from public sector, which
Right.
is almost identical, it's person to person. When my municipality switched to Horizon after getting out of the state health benefits plan, when they proposed like a 24% increase, lots of towns wanted to get out. Lots of towns used the same broker, and that broker shopped it out. And depending on your claims history, some of us got a really good proposal from Horizons, other ones got really bad ones and couldn't leave the state health benefits plan. And the following year, personal experience and others, it's varied. It can be 3%, or they can propose a 20% increase. It's just,
that's why I
I'm
was
not
just
aware
wondering
of
if there's
it.
something like that we could connect it to say, well, typically Horizon across the districts, any district that uses Horizon has increased 15%.
Steady, nope.
And, we're getting a 4% increase because they want our business.
Yep, nope, and not that I'm aware of, but what I can tell you, they generally, which this proposal is low, considering what they generally do. Generally, year to year, once you're in Horizon, it's all based on your claims history. If you're at 97-ish%, where they think that's a decent client, they're making money off you, they might offer you just a 3% increase for next year. But if you have a claims history that year of 105%, where your claims are higher than your premiums, they're certainly going to hit you with a hard increase. So no way to tell.
Sorry, I know we're on unless you have another question.
Well, I have other questions.
Wait, no, you keep asking questions, because I'll listen to you. I'll listen.
So with the shift, it sounds like we get paid back dividends if we don't go over our premium, so
No guarantee. The dividends are almost inconsequential. They said we were looking at a couple $1,000 because of our length of time there. They have ones that have been in there, I think, decades, and they get maybe in the tens of thousands, like substantial dividends.
It's still not 500,000.
Our dividends, if we get them, are not going to be anything that, at least in my mind, affected the conversation enough to say, oh, wow, we might be looking at a 50,000 dividend too. That's not in the foreseeable future.
John, if we make this switch next year, and we're saving $500,000, and if they do the following year, raise it up to, say, 12%. In essence, we would be right now if we had stayed.
No,
No,
16
we'd be better
16%.
still.
We would still be better at 12. We would be 16%.
And it's not just being better. If we saved
Right.
it, if we saved the 500 this year and they went up 12%,
I'm just
and,
saying 12% as just a number.
I know, that was one of the examples I used, I think, no, 10% I used and 15. If they went up 10% next year, we'd be paying $4,290,000, but the shift, also no guarantee. I did a 3% since that is their average, and they'd be at $4,500,000. So even next year, we would save 200,000. Not only wouldn't we lose any of what we saved, we'd save more. But again, once you get up over 25%, then it was a loser for us, you know.
I mean, I'm pretty torn, I'm not gonna lie. I know it's obviously a tough decision, but I'm so not a gambler, and the one thing that does scare me is that we would not get another quote for 36 months, and so if we ended up being locked in with Horizon at an alarmingly high rate, that does worry me. So I lean towards staying where we are, but I wish I wasn't the third to give in my opinion. That's a tough one, but yeah, I think I'm leaning towards staying where we are because I get nervous that we wouldn't really have any other options.
Sorry, one more question, or it might be more, but I have another question now. On the pros, it is listed as employee satisfaction,
Yeah.
but I know whenever, if I've worked for a company and they change their health insurance, it's like, it's frustrating because you have to see if your doctors are still in network, if you have specialists or anything of that sort. So how did employee satisfaction end up on the pros list?
Because if I remember right, and Mary Jane or Vince will jump in, or Jason or Allison, the Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield is the easiest of most of the switches we might make. And just so everybody knows, obviously, even if we don't like what happens in a couple years or next year with Horizon, it's not like, oh, now we're locked out of the shift and therefore we're stuck with Horizon. There's Aetna and other things, but you're right, a switch, like I said at the beginning, is difficult. You got 180 employees that are being told you're guaranteed it's equal or better coverage. And the way I remember it was that most of the doctors are participating with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, but not all. And that's why
But it's
it's a pro.
mostly
Because the
a
pro,
smaller
right.
network. It's mostly
smaller
a very.
network.
Yeah, most of it are in network, but to answer your question, I think it's a pro because then for the employees, there's not even one doctor that's different. You know, they're in the same thing they were in.
But how come this year we didn't get any proposals from Aetna and, all the other providers?
I don't know if they talked to any, but typically they come back with their
I
best.
think they indicated that there were a few that declined to quote.
But is that a normal, I'm not as
Yes.
familiar, so that's typical.
Yes.
But so, again,
can
since
be,
you
yeah.
brought that up, like if Horizon was alarmingly high and we couldn't get back into the shift yet, and is it possible that we would just be we would have request denied for more proposals from, like, that's a typical response? So I'm just saying we would, maybe we could be locked into Horizon in that case if we weren't getting proposals from Aetna or.
Well, sure, and like I said, nobody
It's
can
like a what if.
say
So
what's gonna
That's why
happen,
I'm
yeah.
saying I'm so not a gambler that that's the part that worries me the most.
And John, I'm assuming the same thing with the employee contribution, co-pays.
Say that again?
I'm assuming the same thing with employee contribution, the co-pays won't go up.
Employee contributions, if we stay with the shift, will go
No,
up.
with the switch.
No, they'll go down.
No, as well with the switch, the co-pays won't go up with the switch as well too.
Oh, the copay, correct. No, I thought you meant the premium contribution. That's the equal or better guarantee. While some doctors could not be in the network,
Right.
the coverage is the same. They will have the same copay, same other coverage, whatever it is.
Typically, when we've done any type of food conversion through the years, our insurance broker will come and work with the staff to do presentations of differences and
Sure.
answer specific questions for people who have specific, situations that they want answered.
And any employees that have been here more than, you gotta go back 5 years, used to be in the Horizon anyway, so
Correct.
it's not unfamiliar territory, but.
Was there any, obviously part of our job is to make sure that we're speaking with those that are affected. was there any conversation with any of the teachers, or, can we
Nope.
kind of take a pulse of?
No, I think it's early for that, and we gotta make, to me, this is just a really big financial decision, and then, the work that'll go with it will go. And the broker, obviously, just like, Superintendent just said, they've done it before, and they know what they'll then need to do to work with the employees to make a smooth transition, but.
And it just is equal to or better, it can't be
Right.
less than.
Right, some
Right.
aspects might be
Coverage.
better just because of where they fall.
And is this, from Horizon, is this a best and final offer? Can the broker go back and say, we will not sign unless we have a
I think it's
3-year
best and
guarantee?
We already said, we didn't say we will not. We asked him to go back to Horizon and say, look, I met with the committee. They're really leaning towards staying, just for negotiation purposes. So could you get us the 2-year or the 2nd-year cap? And they said no.
But if we did, the rate's obviously very low, and it is a significant savings, but if we went back, if they are able to negotiate, I would suggest maybe going back and saying, can we do a higher premium or a higher amount, where we're still making a significant savings, but we got a cap on a certain year?
2 things, I think our brokers did all that through the process, like they vetted this out, I think tremendously, and being that, the time of year we are for a new year, I think it's done at this point. They're not legitimate questions, but we relied on them to do all the negotiations well before we even met with them. That's how they got us this proposal.
Yeah.
John. I just wanted to bring out, I'm just looking at this, this is the first time I'm seeing this. This insurance company has a considerable amount of districts.
Horizon or SHIP?
This
I
one
think they
is-
both do, but I don't know who you're looking at.
Yeah, isn't this?
That's Brown and Brown.
Oh, okay.
That's our broker who does a bunch of districts, yeah. Not that we have to cut off conversation by any means, but can we keep rolling through? Because conversation might not be necessary if we've got to.
I think, Amy.
Oh, for me, I
Were
would
we
be
up to you?
open-
I'm not, I
Yeah.
lost track.
I would be open to furthering conversation, to obviously see, just weighing out more of the benefit with the savings and what the transition looks like. 95% match of doctors sounds fair, I'm really just concerned about not having stability. And I understand that you said the broker did go back, but sometimes I think in negotiation, until you come to the table with the people who are making the decision, you don't know what's important to them.
Right.
And they may have thought that saving $500,000 was the most important thing, and that's why they did that. So perhaps if we went back and said stability over a number of years is kind of more important. I would just like to see if we could go back to make something that makes more sense, so that we have that stability, and this is kind of a no-brainer at that point.
Okay. So I had said switch, then I think Allison and Brenna both said they're leaning towards staying. You're open, and would like to see Brown and Brown take one more shot at it. Who's
For
next?
the record, I like the phrase "I'm open." It's very wishy-washy, but I'm not a hard no. I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah.
I just don't know what the timeline looks like. How soon you have to make a decision? If
I
have to
think
make
the
a decision
latest
right
we
this
should
moment.
decide is at the May 7th meeting. We can ask Brown and Brown to
Okay.
go back one more time, but I
Okay.
think, that's pushing it. And then a hard deadline for not renewing with the shift.
Right.
It'll depend what kind of attitude they take. Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think, will take us in if we can get out of the other one. And I guess we could still ask them to ask, and then if it's too late, it was too late, because we weren't decided. Who'd be next?
I am.
Okay,
I'm gonna like to stay.
stay.
Stability and just being conservative. Because I don't trust the rate cap and what can happen in the future here.
All right, who's next?
Anyone can go that
Anyone
way.
go that way, or
Ann,
Jessica?
Angelique?
I'll go.
Or
I'm in
Jeff.
favor of switching.
Switch.
It's a lot of money, and I'm not worried about the rate cap at all, so I'm in favor of switching.
Switching.
Switch.
switching, but I wouldn't be opposed to going back, as Amy had suggested as well, but we need to know, an answer, switch.
And Jessica?
Yeah, so, reading through this presentation, I think that the $500,000 savings is too significant for us not to strongly consider possibly switching. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield is a respectable company. We obviously used to have them. I know that there's always going to be cons and there's always going to be risks no matter which option we choose. And there could have been 15 options on the table, and I think no matter what, there's always going to be cons and risks associated with that. But that amount of savings for our district, I think is, like I said, just far too significant for us not to consider it. And in looking through, I think that the pros of switching also seem to be pretty good. Like, if I'm looking through this as someone who's deciding on these two plans as a consumer, it still seems, pretty fair and something that I would want to explore if I was a consumer, not only for the savings, but just switching back to Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. So in favor of switching.
Thank you. All right, so we had 5 people who said they're open to switching. We had 4, one who was a hard stay, I believe, correct me if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, but Allison, Brenda, and Amy all were leaning towards staying, but open to still discussing it if we have time to still discuss it, and you seem like you would want to switch if there was a 2-year thing that guaranteed savings both years. I just, at this point, don't know. Vince, do you know, or Mary Jane, was there a hard date that we would have to tell the shift if we're not going to renew?
I think it's a 90-day out.
So we just have to give them, the
No,
process
90-day notice.
90-day notice. The process, though, is that administratively, like you were talking about, we do an open enrollment. So that's something that we have to do and we have to offer. So that is underway.
That process would have to
Yeah, we would have to
differently.
begin differently and do it
And
again. So if we are doing that, if we're in our current one, we would start an open enrollment, we would do all the things that we normally do. So, but no matter what, we would have to do that. And then within we'd be giving the shift 90 days to say we're leaving, and then we would do a re-enrollment in the next one.
So there's 90-day hard notice, but it doesn't have to be for the July renewal. It's any time during the contract.
I think it's any time
Anytime.
during the.
That's what I was misunderstanding.
Yes,
It's 90 days,
yes.
we were already
90 days.
done for
Right.
July.
90
Oh, good.
Right.
Then,
So we have some time.
But if
then
you
yeah,
wanna-
out of due deference to all the board members' comments, I think then we should not prolong it any more than till maybe the May meeting, not even May 7th, maybe the second one, but ask Brown and Brown to go back
Yeah,
there
you
one
can
more
have
time.
follow-up
Just round
Thank
and
you.
round.
with them.
No, that clarification that it does not have to be on the July renewal is good by me. Great. All right, thanks for the good conversation, guys. And RFPs. Okay, same thing on the RFPs. If it's okay, I'll do a little opening and touch upon what I saw so that then we can walk through each one. And Vince will, I'm sure on this one, correct me if I'm wrong on anything. But so tonight, everybody got a chance to look at the summaries of all the RFPs. And we're out for 6 positions. Yeah, 6 positions. To me, each one, everyone was different, but I've got opinions on ones that I think we could make a pretty quick decision on versus ones that I think need to go to an evaluative committee versus ones that need not only that committee to form, but the interviews to be done and get some more answers. So I'm going to tell you just the way I saw all of them. Other than the attorney, I'm going to stay away from that only because, as everybody knows, I have a conflict with Dasty and Stager. So obviously I wouldn't be on any evaluative committee, but I think it's better if I don't even get into a discussion about the different attorneys. So I'm gonna skip that one, even though it's written down here, so as usual, I had an opinion. So skipping the bond counsel. To me, on bond counsel, we got 4 responses. Walentz, Goldman, and Spitzer, is our current one. McManaman, Scotland, and Bannerman, Archer Griner, and Parker McKay. I can tell you, McManaman I'm not familiar with, Archer Griner and Parker McKay I work with in my work life. They're really good, really reputable firms, but all things considered on bond counsel, our current provider, and everything I say tonight, obviously about the current ones, is based on the fact that I believe, and they'll tell me if I'm wrong, that our current administration is also happy with these people. To me, and sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't, it's up to, and you guys don't need to do it. But on this one, if we're happy with our current one, they're a well-established firm, just like the other ones that has lots of school boards. But after you decipher all the fees for issuing bonds, fees for doing leases, the different things, at the end of the day, Walentz is the most reasonable. Their hourly is $175. Everybody goes up to then $215, $225, and even $245 to $300. So for me, that one's what I'd call an easy call. I would certainly recommend just staying with Walentz. Should we take them one at a time and then see if anybody else has comment? Or do you want me to go through all of them? I think one at a time is better while it's fresh on my. Anybody have any other feelings on that one? Thoughts or feeling on bond counsel?
I agree with what you just said. I agree
Oh,
with
okay,
what you
good.
said.
Good, so that's an easy one. I think that's where we're gonna go. And Vince, I don't believe there's an obligation to. If the board feels the way they just said they felt on this, as long as the superintendent is agreeable, that could just appear on an agenda to
As a
award to them,
renewal.
correct?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Sure, there's no requirement to interview it.
Or even for the evaluative
It may.
committee, right? Yep.
Yeah, it's, again, coming from a standpoint of best practices, how do you want to run the
Yeah,
process?
when there's something clear like this, though, I'd like to cut to the quick. And obviously, if any board members felt differently, I'd be
That's
happy. And I'm sure we will on some. All right, the next one was for our financial advisor. They get involved, from my experience, primarily when we are doing bond issues, but also for other decision-making when we're doing leases. I'm sure Vince, probably more than Mary Jane, reaches out to them for advice. I'm also familiar with these companies, no conflicts, but I've worked with them in my capacity. I find them all to be very good. Phoenix Advisor, I find to be outstanding. They are our current provider, and what I did on that one was, aside from the other rates for the issuance and whatnot, I, again, just like the one above it, I went to the hourly, and having no issues, and in fact feeling really good about Phoenix Advisor. If you compare all the senior associate, or no, the associate fees, hourlies, which are the ones I think end up doing most of the work on these things, they're at $115, and the other two are at $150 and $195. So again, I see no reason to do anything other than stick with our current provider. Anybody else had any thoughts on the financial advisor proposals? Great. Auditor, this one was interesting. I know Suppley Clooney as our current, we got 3 responses. And Holman, Frenia, Allison, I've worked with for 30 years in different capacities. Both super solid firms. Jump Perry and Company, I've never heard of. They had a great client list, which, was impressive for schools. And they were notably cheaper. So the main thing the auditor does every year, this ACFRA, and apparently an ACFRA and the ASSA, they gave flat rates for that. Our current provider was $30,000 for the ACFRA. And Vince, did I miss anything to know whether or not that includes the ASSA as well? Because I didn't see it.
It typically does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just didn't see it
with their
called out. Good.
History.
And the home infrenia is right there, 30,500. But Jump Perry was, again, we're not talking health insurance here, on a $30,000 thing though, they're $25,000 less. And their hourly is $115 versus $135 with HFA, or $120 with Suppley Clean. I'm sorry?
They're not 25,000 less.
5,000 less. Did I say 25 less?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and actually, they're only 4,500 less than Suppley, I was just rounding it out, and 5,000 less than HFA. So, on this one, I'm fine with just sticking with Suppley Clooney, but I'd like to just throw in for the conversation, if anybody else wants to, I thought it might be worth having a committee and talking to Jump Perry, even with the good client list, to see how the committee felt about them or going further. So that's what I would say. I'd like to get a little discussion on whether the group or the majority feel like just staying with Suppley Clooney and making this one quick and easy too, or because of the rate proposal, having an evaluative committee look at, they should talk to all three then, obviously, to confirm that Suppley Clooney includes the ASSA. I don't think there'd be a big charge added for that, but because they're so close, if anybody, I'll take positions on if anybody feels like we should go further with this or just stick with Suppley Clooney.
How long has Suppley Clooney been doing it for us?
I would say at least my tenure here, so 9+ years, I would say.
And, I mean, I know the
15, 20, perhaps.
And, I mean, the 5,000 is obviously interesting, but I know time is money too, and I don't know what, can't really put a number on it, I'm sure, but would it be a big disruption, or, you know, that shift over to a new company, would that be extra work for like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so, I mean, it would be tough in the sense that a company has to come in and it's their first time looking at your records, and they would have to, you know, work with the prior professional to look at, you know, audit papers and that sort of thing. So, I mean, in that sense, it's, you know, there's an adjustment, and, you know, could, in some cases, add more time, but not necessarily.
Not necessarily,
You know,
independent.
And if I could add
Just a
to that
sense,
from mine, in addition to the toughness, I do find that there's real benefits in working with the company that you've been working with when it comes to your audit. Each year, they actually end up, from my experience, knowing your books pretty well, knowing your budget really well, and being able to then therefore think outside of the box a little, and or know where the BA and superintendent's head is already with the kind of things they recommend. So I think there's definitely some advantages to that.
And if I may add, that is something, when we're making financial decisions, and Vince and I are doing, we call them a lot. And they'll say, well, here's what I would advise based on, because they're the ones that are gonna be auditing and providing feedback on our financial performance.
right.
So we wanna be working within that and having that reassurance or the clarification, or as you said, giving us a different way to think about it sometimes.
Yeah, and remember, they're independent.
Independent,
So
yeah, they are independent,
They
yeah.
cannot provide advice.
Right.
It's really just from an accounting standpoint, they can tell you what will happen or what
Yeah.
won't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
So
And
in
Vince, can I
that
just-
sense, you know, Mary Jane and I will work with anybody, any
Oh, yeah.
professional
Yeah.
that's appointed in their role as
No need to
as
look-
an independent
no,
auditor,
sorry.
but, yeah.
No need to look anything
It's-
up.
It's
but
really more the board's comfort level of,
Yeah.
you know,
I think there's
those
benefits
opinions that were
to
shared.
staying with who you have. Do you know off the top of your head, not looking them up, has their annual fee to us been pretty consistent? You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it's been
Then let me
very,
rephrase,
very gradual.
let me rephrase what I put out there. Does anybody have a strong propensity or want to recommend that we go further in the interview versus just staying with Supply Cleaning?
I think we should go further in the interview. I think we should go further in the interview and see what their ideas are of what the process is of looking at our books for the first time. What their ideas would be with that. How difficult that would be.
Any other thoughts from anybody? You guys, I think I got from the heads, you'd rather just stay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just to get more of a feel, not to put anybody on the spot, but Angelique or Jason, you got any
I
feelings
mean,
on?
I don't know,
You
it's
could-
it's only $5,000 savings, I don't really, I'm not sure if that's enough to move, but, I mean, they do have a significant client list, I wonder what those other districts
I mean,
see that we don't see, I don't know.
just to add, you can also, to Mr. Rignetta's point, you can still have an evaluative committee go through the scoring of these proposals, and then if there are questions after that, you can bring them in for an interview, but you don't have to. I'm
Have
just
the
saying, you may
interviews,
want to still go through, which we should, to the ones that we are, want to look at the proposals
But depending
and
on
weigh against.
Depending on this polling, Vinny might have to do that committee all by himself. We'll see if anybody, like Brenna said, time is money. I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody's volunteering to jump on it with me. Jay, any feeling?
Yeah. Can I go?
That was Jason.
Oh,
and
Jason,
then
hold on.
I do virtual last.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, looking around 5,000 a year savings, I mean, it's,
Plus the ASSA, we don't know for sure what the ASSA.
well, it's
is.
on here, it's 2,500.
No, I'm sorry, with Supplement, they didn't give the ASSA.
Right.
so.
And just to be clear, it's only, it's 4,500 savings from our current one.
Right.
It was 4,500 under HFA.
Because you're saying the ASSA is included with Supply.
Is
Say again?
It's included with Supply?
Yes,
Yes.
that's generally how he
Generally,
presents it.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's included.
Yeah,
So there's
just
not
say
an
that.
additional
The other one
cost.
said that.
Okay.
Yeah, so, that's it.
Okay to stay. Jess?
Sorry, I had to take you off mute there. Is it possible for us to go back to Supply because they're our current auditor and ask if this is, like, is there any negotiation? Like, can they do any better? Or is that?
Negotiation's not permitted.
Yeah,
It's not
you-
permitted.
you can't do that during an RFP process, and personally, with like, with an insurance company, like how we were talking about before, going back and negotiate, that's good. With the professional firms, I find that, I respect the offer they put together and the proposal they put together. I think it's better anyway, but as Vince said, in our process, you can't anyway.
Okay, well then, if we want to put together a committee to go through and score everything, I would certainly be open to that. But based off of what I'm seeing here on the spreadsheet, I don't think that amount difference makes too much of a significant drop in the bucket. And so, if we had to pick, I think that, Supply obviously has been serving us well for the last 9+ years. I know when they've come in to do presentations while I've been on the board, I certainly appreciated what they did, and we didn't see any errors in anything that they audited on. And so I would also be in favor of staying with them, for those reasons. But certainly open to scoring everything if that's something that the majority of the board wanted to do.
Most people want to stay.
Yeah, there's good.
Doesn't make any sense.
Vinny's not gonna take it personally. I'm gonna move ahead and say, we're gonna just stick. Kevin had already said
Oh,
stay,
okay.
yeah. Good, thank you. And especially because I think we will have to have evaluative committees, at least my thoughts on the next two. So on health insurance broker, we got 4 responses. One of them, Jay Vogel, at least in the, summary, I did not see any rates or clients. Brown & Brown was at 2.5% of the premium. They're all pretty close in the dental, and the dental's a pretty small part of it. Centric was completely different at $25 per employee. Vince, I don't know if you understood that, but to me, that seems ridiculously cheap unless they meant a month, not a year, because 180 employees
Yeah,
at
per
20,
month. It says per month, so I'd have to go back.
That's what I-
and
well,
Look at their,
and Hudson
proposal.
Shore was a whole percentage point less at 1.5%. Using the percentages versus $25 an employee, if that's anyway, this one, I thought there was enough questions, there were sufficient questions, and some of the other ones appear to be significantly less than Brown and Brown, who has served us really well. But I think this one does deserve some further evaluation. I think we should have an evaluative committee set up. Everybody good with that?
Would you, if that is the case, would you like to,
Yeah, what I was gonna say, should we, just for speed,
suggest meeting?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to roll call that or not?
Nope, I just, but I think to Vince's point and Mary Jane, I will take, so the evaluative committee could be the finance committee, because they've been dealing with this, or we could form a whole new one. Does anybody, let's put it this way, anybody have any concerns if the finance committee just takes on the role? Good. All right, then let's do that. Let's let the finance committee be the evaluative committee.
Okay. So then I would ask those members, before the evaluation starts to, see if there are any conflicts. And
Right.
so, a test on that conflict of interest.
Right, Vince sent everybody a sheet that if you're gonna be on an evaluative committee, you have to then sign off that you don't have any conflicts with those companies.
I'm good.
So take a look at that, but we will have the finance committee
Okay.
as our evaluative committee. And the last one we went out for were commercial insurance brokers. On that, we got 4 responses. Alliant, who is our current,
Yes.
okay, had workers' comp coverage at 6%.
By the way, for those newer members, Alliant used to be called Boynton and Boynton, and they merged and name change.
Thank you.
Thank you. These proposals seem very close at workers' comp at 6%. One of them, CBIZ, just saying they would charge standard commissions. I don't know if that is 6%, And then one of them, government risk management, had no rates that I saw. So this one, I think for sure, we need to let the finance committee, unless anybody wants to form a different evaluative committee, I think this one needs to be evaluated further and maybe contact these people, because unless anybody else saw anything I'm missing, I don't see any clear path to who gave us the best proposal.
Okay.
Finance committee still willing to do it?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
All right, great. And then you just have the legal service.
Legal service, and then I just want to talk about the cafeteria.
I would imagine.
The evaluative committee, before we get to legal counsel, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, I forget, I think it was back in February, we approved, or January, February, we approved Advocate to be the company that's working with the RFP for our food services. We're at that point where we have to do an evaluative committee with Advocate, and we need 2 board members, Mr. Camera, who will help serve on that committee for the evaluation that Advocate is putting together for us with different members,
Right.
Stuff like
When
that.
will
So,
that happen? During the day?
Well,
based on ability.
yeah,
And like
Yes,
every,
is there a
It'll-
food service
it'll
on,
be-
yes,
I
it'll
can
be
do it.
mutually.
yes.
good, because obviously that one too involves money, but being the food service, yeah, I think we should get a couple other people. Alice, the 2
Allison
ends,
and Angelique.
I think you were too late.
Allison.
Allison and
I'll do it.
Angelique, so
Perfect.
then you only need 2.
Okay, so then look for a similar attestation sheet that Advocate will send directly to you.
To you,
Terrific.
yes.
To your
advocate will
board
send that.
email, to your board
To your board
email.
emails. Mhm.
Okay.
You have no
I
conflicts
have to
with
let-
various food and eating and
I
anything
don't know
like that.
anybody.
Well-
That's the good news. I know no one. Game on.
Beautiful. Anything else from
Just
you
the
or
attorney.
Vince?
No.
Vince?
I guess just the legal services would be
Oh,
another,
yeah.
another
So
one.
somebody else should. Did anybody else get a chance to look at the legal services and want to
There were,
open up the
6
conversation?
6 submitters, 6 proposals that came in.
So when, if I can add into, when it does come to legal services, you know that we've had one person, one company that has represented all aspects. There are also different firms that you can use for different aspects of legal matters within a school district. So there are some districts that use a firm for special education only, for negotiations only, for board counsel, for special counsel. So there's different ways we can do this, or the board can choose to stay with a totality of things. So a few years ago, we were involved in an RFP process for negotiations. That was one thing that we've done before. So that's just an
Yep.
example of that, of what we've done in the past.
Thank you, and I'll expand on that. From my experience in the public world, we've sometimes appointed a township attorney and then a separate, right to Mary Jane's point, labor attorney, of course, bond counsel, and then for other aspects of the court, like for specific things. And same with engineering. But I've actually found it even better if there's more than one firm that you like, to appoint a board attorney, and then in addition to the board attorney, you could appoint as many as you want attorneys to an attorney pool. We make a pool of attorneys, we make a pool of engineers, and then administration can use them as they see fit.
So how many
Like on retainer?
would you
I'm
would
sorry.
you
You put it
suggest?
on retainer, like a kind of,
No,
Oh,
no
just other
retainer,
pools.
we just have their, Mary Jane was
Sorry, I just
asking
asked.
if we then put each one of them on retainer, and we don't. We appoint engineers or attorney to a pool, and based on their RFP and the rates they gave. And then if for whatever reason, anybody feels like we want to pool from this firm to represent us on some particular case that came up, or on negotiations, or on something else, and not use the board attorney, then you could pick from that pool.
So,
But no.
Mr. John, how many, so in your mind, right, because I think that's a great idea, right, is to have different counsel that could either specialize in certain things and wherever as we may need them. So what in your mind would be our pool? Would you want to appoint special education? Would you want to appoint labor? Would you want to have special counsel? Like, have you thought about how many attorneys you'd want to?
In my mind, I think were they the largest? I think if you had a pool with no more than 2 of the firms that gave proposals, there were 2 of them that were or 3, I guess, that were on the lower end with the hourly rates. And at least 2 of them had very large firms, like, you know what I mean? So if they were all one-person firms, then I'd be answering your question differently. But because a couple of them have a lot of attorneys, I think we'd be fine with just a board attorney and then a separate special counsel, or a separate pool if it's going to be more than one person, one firm. But 2, I think, would be plenty based on the firms I saw.
So you're not suggesting appointing like a special education lawyer, or,
I
you know,
find
like
that,
you're breaking
yeah.
down different, so you
Not for
think
me,
just-
I find it kind of limiting. I like the ability to use how they want to use.
So kind of the current structure that we have right now, where we have our board attorney and we have a special counsel.
That would work.
Okay.
But I guess several could be appointed as special counsel, as opposed to saying a pool. You know, it
Okay.
just seems funny to have, if you're only going to do one in addition to board attorney, I'm just saying you want to call
We're
it
not
a
gonna
pool.
call it a pool, right?
John, I see
Je-
one. Only one has-
Jess was trying to
Oh, sorry.
get in.
Sorry, everyone, I know you can't see me. Yeah, so I think I made this very clear when we were voting on special counsel to add in Dosti as a firm for special counsel, that I really like the idea of having a second or possibly, I didn't know we could do what you just suggested, John, even a third, to pull from, because several times during the first year that I was on this board, I did have other questions, and for one reason or another, the opinion that we got from our general counsel was not satisfactory in my opinion. And so I like the idea of having another attorney we can go to. And sometimes there will be situations that come up that maybe another firm would be more appropriate to go to based on their experience or maybe their client list. I'm not sure, top of my head here, but there could be several reasons. So I think it's a great idea. I was going to make the suggestion that we do suggest a general counsel, but then perhaps keep a special counsel as well. I'm certainly open to having a second special counsel as well. And I obviously some of these firms do have many more attorneys than others, and so I think that pulling from them and having that kind of in our back pocket to use at our discretion is valuable to our district and its whole. So.
Thank you. Vin, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw only one firm seems to have experience with negotiations and labor personnel. How often does those issues come up?
Negotiations?
Well, do they come up somewhat often, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say every
year.
Every year for
Every year there's
somebody,
independent
right, yeah.
contracts, every.
I would suggest at least have that firm, they seem to be a little pricey, but, not for the paralegal though, but as a special counsel. At least a special counsel for that specific area.
Who was that?
That was,
It's in the checklist, and
your,
to Vinnie's point, there's no, it doesn't seem that anyone's checked off here that handles special education. So does that mean they just don't have a lawyer that specializes in it? Because obviously if we have a special
No, it says
education-
all services, so the first
Yeah, I
couple
think
says all
that's-
Now, all
services.
services
It's
for
encompassed in
everything.
all services, so if they didn't, so all services includes negotiations.
Right.
So if it's checked off as as it says all services, it means it does have negotiations.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if anybody did the schoolwork, didn't do
That's
special
why I was
education
asking. I
and,
said that looks
and
odd.
Yeah.
labor,
That's correct.
So then,
Thank you.
okay, so then this, the last one on the list here, Fioro only does general counsel and labor personnel, is what you're saying.
Correct, that's what's checked off on there.
does that mean, that doesn't
I didn't bring my
necessarily
glasses
mean
today.
that they have more experience doing the negotiations or anything like that than other firms in the.
That you wouldn't know, I don't think, until you
Yeah, you
talk to them. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess that's the bottom line, not that we have to cut it off, but it's, if nobody has any hard recommendations now to talk about, should we do a committee, evaluative committee?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should have a committee and discuss, the number of attorneys. I think that that's a good idea. to
And that
have a
one, both because of
conversation.
my conflict with Chris, as well as the fact that I'm one of the ones that then would work with, I think it's, I obviously will stay off that committee. So, I don't know about another just appropriate committee to grab. Anybody interested in that committee? Because that's,
I think policy might be a good committee for that. I'm not on policy.
yeah. Yeah, nothing came to mind.
Jessica
for me,
raised her
but
hand.
Anything?
Yeah,
I like to join that,
yeah. Was that Amy that suggested policy?
Yeah.
Amy suggested policy.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, Amy. Our policies come up a lot where, we have to seek out legal advice. And so I think policy would maybe be a good committee if the other committee members are willing to be part of that. If not, I certainly would like to be part of a committee that takes a look at these firms.
I'm not gonna, I heard two positive reasons. Why don't we, if everybody's okay, do the policy committee?
Can I jump on that?
Are you?
Can I jump on that with the policy?
Only if they don't have some, like, if one of the policy committee members has a conflict
Yeah.
or just doesn't have the time with his schedule with Vinnie, just voice that he'd like to be part of it as well. But obviously you can't on a regular basis with four.
Yeah, it would be Allison, are you able to join?
Yes.
And then it would be Jason is on policy as well?
Policy?
Yeah. Are you okay with the attorney? And Angelique?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I still like the food one.
Okay. And then I also had sent, and then I think that from staffing wise, it would be Mr. Marasco, myself, and Dr. Beck.
For sure.
Would be also on that committee as well.
Beautiful, guys. I'd say, thank you, because you guys all did a lot of work in a concise way. I hope you guys found it interesting enough. I know some of the stuff that I like, other people find boring, but thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah,
to the
thanks.
public.
To be continued.
So,
and we'll-
anybody want to do a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Jenna, and just all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting
See you
adjourned.
tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
Are you
Good night.
live, you're live tomorrow, right? You're gonna
Yeah,
be
I'll be
in person?
live.
Okay, all right, we'll see you
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay, have a good night.
You too.
Thanks for reminding me about the legal discussion.
I don't,
Totally just-
let's go back.
Hey, sorry, you know how it is once,
Oh, I know, I just,
Hey, you.
we got it.
what I do for a living, so the
Valid.
question is that I would like to jump in and.
Are you in on one, with one of the companies that?
That's the umbrella fund that we're in.
Then I'd be happy to talk.
The